that was accredited to him as righteousness. And the word believed is Aleph Mem Nun, or Aleph Mem Nun Hey, or Hey Aleph Mem Nun. We'd have to look that up and kick those words around. But he didn't just believe. He was found to be faithful. When he was told to count the stars, he was told to sephir the stars. Not count, but the word sephir means count. But it also means a bunch of other stuff. What sephir means is to look at something, to study it, and to make sense of it. It's the word for a barber who cuts hair. Abraham was told to be like a barber and cut the hair of those stars. What? That's what the dictionary says. It's a picture of giving something a shape, like a barber cutting hair. That's how you have to read Hebrew. Being a sephirer is one who gives a shape to something. It also is like connecting fence posts with the fence. Or here's forts on the frontier, which sets up the national boundaries, which is a picture of the stars and connecting them with lines, forming constellations to tell a narrative story. Sephiring means to tell a story. Abraham was told to go out, look at the stars, and connect them with lines to form pictures which tell a story. And he was found faithful, trustworthy, competent as a master artist. Sounds to me like Abraham went out and designed the constellations. But then that same verse was quoted in the New Testament and says, just like the Father, the model of our faith, was told to count the stars, and he couldn't, so he just believed. So he's a model by which we should be just like him. And don't do anything, just believe. I completely disagree. I think the very words that were used to make it so that nobody wanting to follow in Abraham's steps would do anything because they're trusting in the blood of the Yeshua, instead of being faithful and trustworthy with fidelity, they did nothing because he did nothing, and it was credited as righteousness. That's not what the words mean. So guess what? From one little translation right there talking about Abraham, an entire multiple generations of an entire church steers off the path of the treasure map, and just like the Indians used to run buffaloes off the cliff, they go running headlong and off the cliff and spend their years of their life doing nothing, just like Abraham did. Except believing. That's not true. From the meaning of this word, Abraham must have stayed up every night until at least 4 in the morning. Staring at the sky and trying to figure out and talking with his friends and going, what do you... Did he have other friends? Well, probably. But he probably slept during the day when it was hot and sat there and stared at the sky all night. Good walking in Abraham's shoes there, Brad. You see, soon as you know something about what these Hebrew words mean, it changes your whole perspective, your whole paradigm of what life means walking with Yahuwah, just based on one word, and then another word, and then another word. And suddenly your whole world is different because you realize we're on to something. We're on to a treasure. What I would suggest, the treasure is that we become like him. An earthly treasure map, you follow this clue and maybe solve some riddles and maybe duck when the sword's coming, and you finally get some trinket, you go, woohoo, I got one, and then you bury it in another treasure box because somebody's going to steal it from you. But Yahuwah's treasure is what Yeshua modeled. He said, I only do the things I see the Father doing. Follow me. So what's our treasure? To see the things the Father's doing and walk according to his footsteps. Yeshua said, I only say the things I hear the Father saying. So what's our treasure? To hear the Father's voice and mimic him, copy him. You know the word for het kuf, which is translated, it's the worst word in the Bible. This is the word everybody hates in the whole Bible. It's spelled het kuf. Whoa! This word, spelled het kuf. Let me tell you, let me lead you astray first. Het is the fence, like the big white fence of the Mishkan with the four-colored door. Kuf is this thing that rises up and spreads out, so it's almost like this covered box lid. Why, by golly, that almost looks like a treasure box with the, you know, the treasure chest with the covered. You know what I mean? Typical, what you might say is a pirate chest type of thing. You see that motif there? Do I have you with me?
Yeah.
Do you understand why I say that the letters het, which is a fenced area, and a kuf, which is like this big round dome, kind of looks like a treasure box? Okay, if you look at the alphabetic sequence, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, this letter het, tet, yod, here. Het, tet, yod, kaf, lamed, men, nun, samach, ayin, pei, zadi, and then kuf. Well, if het is the fence, and kuf is this letter like this lid, it sort of looks like a treasure box, doesn't it? And you know what's inside that treasure box? Passover, unleavened bread, Shavuot, Day of Blowing in Trumpets, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Shemini Atzeret. Pieces of the Mishkan, the fence, the barbecue grill, the laver, the menorah, table of showbread, altar of incense, and Ark of the Covenant. Inside this! Well, that looks like Yahweh's treasure box. Where do you think he hid his treasure? But guess what they translated this word to mean? Law! How many people you think that scared off the treasure map? It's translated commandments. The whole Christian New Testament that I've heard for years, we're not under the law, we're under grace. Woohoo! No more law! Woohoo! No more Moedim! Woohoo! We're all set free! Yay-ha! Off the path! Goodbye. What about the treasure map? We don't care, we're under the blood. Woohoo! We got a ticket to heaven. We're going to be raptured. I am not mocking those concepts. What I'm saying is, I believe that to steal away the Moedim, or to even change one Moedim into two and lose one of them, is to get us off the path of the treasure map. Remember yesterday when I erased the whole center section of the Aleph Bet? That's what happens because those are the letters between Hut, Het, Kuf. And if Yahweh says, so I hid my treasure. How do we get in? I could point to the Zion and say, well, this is the Zion outside the Het, and that's number 7. And because you've got the first 7 letters as a model pattern of the 7 days of creation, then the letter Zion as proof means like an axe cuts off. The 7th day was cutting off the week. The 7th day itself is cut off from the other 6 days. Read Genesis 1. Then for those churches that teach that the 7th day is changed to the first day have cut themselves off from the access to even getting in here. Oh, but they meant well. They meant to honor the Savior on the day He resurrected, except if you go back and figure things out. He said, here's a clue, guys. One sign given you, the sign of the prophet Jonah, as he was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. He didn't say 3 days, he said 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth. And you go, well, wait a minute. And I've heard my whole life, oh, them crazy Jews. They think that, like right now, it's right at the edge of sunset. And if you got even 1 minute before the sun hits that ridge, oh, that counts as a whole day. So if he was in the grave 1 minute on Friday before the sun hit, oh, that counts as all day Friday. And then Saturday. And if he rose just as the sun peeked its head up on Sunday morning very early, oh, that counts as Sunday, that's 3 days, woohoo! He didn't say that. So the people who make up stories about them crazy Jews because of some fable of their culture from way back when, he said 3 days and 3 nights. Throwing us off the path. How many well-meaning believers have believed for the last 2,000 years that Jesus rose Sunday morning after being put to death on Good Friday, Friday afternoon. Sorry, didn't happen. It's a lie. It's a fool's gold. Another story. Hey, check with Michael Rood and a few other people. He would have been killed on Wednesday and rose probably Saturday night before the sun came up. Different matter. Point is, did Yahweh hide something? And is Yahweh waiting for us to be willing to walk the path so that we can get the end treasure? If the end treasure is being conformed to His image, to speak His words, to think His thoughts, to see with His eyes, if we don't follow Yeshua because we've been told that this man who claimed to be the Dalit is an infidel, a crook, a liar, that he's burning in hell as we speak, you know, that's what our fellow brethren, the Jews, are told by their teachers. They're told, do not look at that guy who claimed to be the door. Do not listen to his words. That one who says, the only way to the Father's house is through me. They say, no, he's a liar. Look elsewhere, anywhere else. So all the Jews that believe those words from their own teachers are led astray off this path. And now we've got, at least since that day, 2,000 years of Jewish culture which is twisted and infested with lies by their own teachers. And we think that the answer to where we are now is to look back and follow in their culture? It has nothing to do with Jewish culture. Nor does it have anything to do with Christian teachings. It's Yahuwah's treasure map, as per the meaning of each of these 22 letters. That's the map, walking in Yahusha's footstep. That's all we've got. We can look at Brother Yehuda and say, well, maybe they got a couple things right. At least they kept the words, at least they kept the Moedim, at least they kept the significance of Yom HaShabbat. We look at the Christians and say, well, at least they recognize the fact that that guy 2,000 years ago is the Mashiach, whatever that means, but at least they acknowledge that. And then we're on our own. There's nobody we can look back throughout the last 2,000 years and copy. That movie that we saw showed how off-base the entire Protestant Reformation went. We can't copy any of our fearless leaders from the Middle Ages. Be they rabbinical Jews, or be they Protestant Reformationists, or be they the Vatican, the Vicar of Christ on earth, as he has on his headband. Sorry, can't buy it. We now have to discover this path for our generation. And if there's 1,000 years in front of us, perhaps the people 1,000 years from now might just look back at you. Just like John Chrysostom, Mr. Golden Mouth himself, as they called him. Oh, what did he say? Sorry, he's wrong. Did you catch his rotten attitude, thinking that the Jews should all be killed? He even said, if I have the story correctly, God hates the Jews, so we should be good Christians and hate the Jews also, walking in his footsteps. Really? Is that his God hates the Jews, so that we should... Sorry, wrong God. If 1,000 years from now, like 1,000 years looking back at him, somebody looks at you and says, hey Josh, what did he say? Let's get somebody to act like you and put him up on the screen. 1,000 years from now, people can remember your words. What words are you speaking? I can suggest they might want to be these words here. Well, then you got to learn these words. What does it mean to learn the words? How do we follow on this treasure map? As I said, if you think, find the rock, take 3 steps to the north, then turn around and reach up. Wait a minute. Each one of these letters was designed by Elohim, and remember, in John 1, in the beginning was this word. We talked about this. I suggest that the word is the Hebrew alphabet. He invented this Hebrew alphabet to be his representative. And then this Hebrew alphabet, through it, he made the universe. And then this Hebrew alphabet itself jumped into itself and became creation, a human being, the pinnacle of all creation, humanity, and the pinnacle of all humanity, the guy we call Yeshua. So as a riddle, I ask people, what was that word? They say, well, that word is Jesus. No, that's the name that people have stuck on the guy who is this word made flesh. But what is this word? Well, the word Yahweh. No, he's the letters that we stick on the name of the guy who invented the word. But what's the word? Well, if the word's the Hebrew alphabet, and it says the word is Elohim, the letter Aleph, like I said the other day, the letter Aleph speaks of is, of present tense. And it's with. This letter bet literally means with. It means in, with, on, among, through, and against. This word is Elohim, and it's with Elohim. It's a mystery. It's a riddle. Right there in John 1. He hid it. Our Elohim hides stuff in riddles. The word for proverb literally is the word for, Mishle, which means parable or riddle. He hides stuff all over the place. It's the glory of Elohim to hide a matter. It's the glory of kings. But the word king is melech. Here's another riddle. Melech. It's the glory of a king. This is the place or the how to lekah, which is walk. And the word melech means one who takes counsel. Counsel of what? Of how to walk. That's the word king. Is it the glory of a king to discover a matter? Why? Because kings are so wealthy they can afford the tuition to go to college? Or is it the glory of one who wants to know how and where to walk? It's the glory of Elohim to hide a matter. It's the glory of one who wants to know how to walk, to discover that matter. The whole scripture is set up as a treasure hunt. And it's all about how you walk. Here's a boot upside down like a ship. And it says, Bakash Chafatzi. Bakash means seek. Chafatzi is my desire. What is it that powers our walk? Seeking His desire. It's embedded in the alphabet. Every little clue, there's a whole other thing we won't go into, but every little clue here, where's the beginning, where's the end, it all goes back. Here, I'll give you a clue. The Paleo letter Aleph I draw like this. It became our letter A. It was drawn sometimes as an ox head, which became our cursive letter A. This letter became sometimes drawn like this, which became our letter 1. Here's 2 arrows and a bow in the shape of the Paleo letter Aleph drawn in that configuration. What is an Aleph? Oh, it's an ox head. No, the word Aleph means ox. It also means taught, trained, and domesticated, to be of the house. This other word we were just reading about was to be taught, trained, and domesticated. There's something about Yahweh's being of His house, to be His bride, to sit at the table right next to Him, to be one heart with Him. That's what it's all about. The lady who was chosen to be the bride, Hadassah, Esther, is because the king, the emperor, noticed that her heart was akin to his heart. So he chose her. It wasn't about the loot, the silks, the fancy stuff. It was about the heart matters. How do we be of Yahweh's heart? So it starts here. The one who picks up the bow and the arrow and decides which target to aim at, he's the one who set it all in motion. If you understand what Aleph is, you can understand that there is one who designed and built this place, set it all in motion with a particular target in mind. And how is it that understanding that will throw most of the world off the track? Because our great institutions of learning, our schools, the Smithsonian Museum even, says there is no God. There is no Elohim. There is no causative agent who put this whole thing into motion, designed it, built it, and aimed it at a particular target. And so all the people who believe that can't even be on the map. Can't even start. For us to start with the Aleph is not just to say, oh, I know the picture's an Aleph. It's an ox. No. That's starting to learn how to read. The word Aleph means ox. It also means taught, trained, and domesticated. But if the concept of Aleph is the one who put this whole thing into motion, then when you read in the scripture where Yahweh says in Isaiah, I believe it is, where He says, as I have planned, so shall it be. As I have purposed, so shall it arise. The word that goes out of my mouth will not return void. It will accomplish that which I sent it forth to do. Yahweh is describing Himself. And then He has these words. He says, Nam Yahweh. When I read earlier in Ezekiel, it's also in Jeremiah, it's all over the place. Whenever he says Nam Yahweh, these words, Nun, Aleph, Mem, talked about the other day, Yod-He, Vav-He, it's basically like this signet ring. As we're watching, Haman had the king's signet ring. Whenever he made a decree, he pressed that signet ring in and it couldn't be revoked. Haman had it, he ended up giving it to Mordecai. Joseph of Egypt, the vizier of Egypt, had the Pharaoh's signet ring. Yeshua has the signet ring of Yahweh. These words are the signet ring of Yahweh. And when he says Nam Yahweh, the only way that we can know what Nun, Aleph, Mem means is because it finds itself identified by the letters in the sequence. And when you have the word Amen, here's a Mem and here's a Nun. There's an Aleph. It's a reconstruction of these same words of so be it. And there's other things in there. But when Yahweh says something, he says Nam Yahweh, that's it. It's decreed and it will happen, so that every single word we read where he says Nam Yahweh, he's placing his signet ring like, what do we care? It's translated, thus saith the Lord, the word of the Lord. Not quite the same. The point is this. I believe that Abagada Havazachati Kalamasachafat Rashta Nam Yahweh. This is what he said. How do we know what it means? There's the key. I drew a little simple key up there. I think the key would be more like this. Here's the end part of the key with the hole in it. Let's see, you got Pesach, and then you've got unleavened bread. But those two are kind of grouped together. So then you've got Shavuot, 50 days of counting, maybe that's a big tooth. And then in the 6 months later, you've got a triplet of this one, and then this one, and the Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. And then you've got one more coming off at Shemini Atzeret. The key's got to look something like that. Just, there's never so many minutes we have left. My mind went, the lock went on it. Where was I? What did I last say right before
the key.
that? Huh?
The key.
Right before the key. Huh? Was anybody listening? What did I say right before I mentioned the key? Okay, here. The point is this. If this is the treasure map, it's not just knowing that Aleph is an ox, or it's not just knowing the teeth on the key. Those are tools. Here's what it is. You have to take on the mind of what every letter means. You become the letter. Each letter is a step of a path, like Indiana Jones had to drop to his knees and become the penitent man. Not just know the answer to the riddle. It's not knowing that Aleph is an ox. It's knowing that there is indeed. The letter Aleph is silent. The omnipotent, eternal creator of all things who speaks in his creation. Jim was talking today, because he's a soil scientist, humans are made out of soil. So the question is, how does the soil work? There's a message in the soil. Yod-He, Vav-He. There's a message in the Torah. There's a message of the Messiah, the message in the Ruach. And it's all the same voice. All 22 aspects have to agree. So someone could say, well, is there a Trinity? Is there 3 aspects? He gave us a model of 22. And within the 22, there's a model of 7. Is that the truth? More so than 3? 3 means something? Whatever. That's another argument that is almost a foolish waste of time as far as I'm concerned. The point is, we need to take on the mind that says, the one who made this place, who speaks silently except through these other 22 letters, which includes written into creation and in the Torah and through Mashiach and by his Ruach, and there's something about each of the other letters. If you don't believe that that guy exists and that he purposefully set the target and shot this thing in motion, you're off the map. And then what is Bet? And then what is Gimel? And you have to take on. Another little interesting play, as we mentioned before, the word Aretz, Aleph, Resh, Zadi, is the word for earth. But Resh, Zadi means to run, and Aleph means I will. How do you run? Where do you run? Aleph, Resh, Zadi is not only earth, but it's the course you run. So for him to build the earth as the course, where he would put the foot that he gave himself because he wanted to come down and run this course. Is it just terra firma that he's running? It's this course, the Aleph through Tav course. He came down here to run this course. He came down here to help us run this course and to show us how to successfully make this course. Each of these 22 letters, we have to take on the consciousness of what they mean. And the reason I tried to bring this out tonight, that was supposed to be kind of sort of the last hoorah, the last great day of Sukkot, though we could have other meetings, we could talk about this more fully other days, is what I'm saying is the upshot of this whole thing, the secret treasure is you become his treasure. Malachi 3:16. He says, then those who speak to one another about his stuff, his Shem, name, fame, renown, reputation, on the day that he makes up his crown jewels, and he takes the names, your names, because you're sitting here contemplating his stuff. Your names are written in the scroll right in front of his throne. He'll pick those up and say, now let me show the entire universe what difference it makes to concern yourselves with his stuff. And the wealthiest people in the world are going to be aghast at what he says of you, his treasure. And that's where Paul, I believe it was, said, we can't even imagine. But he said it, so it's true. The way we become his, I fully believe, is to faithfully take on his word within us, mem, and noon, we become. Remember, like the baby, only it's not birthing another baby, but it's yourself into eternity, which is the noon coming out of the mem. Kaf Lamed, you take his words into your heart by teaching and learning. Words of the Torah, because he bought you at Pesach, owns you like branding iron, stamp of the Tet. Mem Noon, what we nurture in his heart, we become what births out unto eternity. Samik Ayin Pei, Micah 6:8, do good, do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your Elohim. That's where the life is lived. The hope set before us, the resurrection, just as he resurrected. Unto the treasure, Reshin Tav. After this, the Kuf Reshin Tav means to be licensed, permitted, and authorized. When he comes back, he will give you. You used to have a job. If somebody didn't have the license appropriate for what they wanted to do, what happened to them? Out, in jail, fined. Yahweh is going to come back and give the people that are his, look up in the dictionary, the word means to be licensed, authorized, and permitted unto your wildest dreams, which has always been his wildest dream. He had a wild, crazy dream, and there's a verse that he says, you guys broke my dreams. We broke his dreams. Our forefathers broke his dreams. This is the opportunity to bring him back his dreams. What was his dreams? You look at the meaning of the 22 letters of the treasure map, and he tells us what his dream is. But if we can't read it, we have no idea. Anyway, we're at the tail end of this. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to say or to ask before we shut the camera down? Yes?
Matthew 9.
Which says?
The woman with the issue of blood. She touched his hem. He didn't say the hem healed her. He turned around and said, woman, your faith has made you whole.
Can you guys hear what he's saying? The woman who touched him, he didn't say that there was magic power imparted in the hem. He says, your faith has made you whole. There's something, I'm not saying that the concept of faith doesn't exist as we read in the dictionary. It is still faith and trust. There is a word for trust and confidence, which is a bet tet het, actually, which is a different word. But there's something about this word. Our faith is evidenced by our faithfulness, which is actively engaged in doing. If she believed that if she touched that tzitzi, that she would be healed, then she pressed through the crowd and she reached out and touched that thing because she implemented her faith. So when John was up here and we prayed for Yahweh to heal him, it's not just play acting, it's because I absolutely believe that when Yahweh said, Yahweh, he is our Rafka, Rapha is the one healer. Rafenu is our healer, so he's Yahweh Rafenu. It is Yahuwah that heals us. And I believe that Yahweh Rapha. That has to be the way we live. We have to conduct ourselves accordingly. Yeah.
I was just going to submit to the earlier discussion on the belief versus faith, that the multitude believed that he was God, but they didn't have the faith. Pharaoh believed, but did not have the faith. Even Hasatan believes, but doesn't have the faith.
It's all in the study
They're
of the
not
words.
faithful.
There's something about the study of words. I want to leave you with this, that studying his words is studying him, because he made this word, which is him that we look back in. Studying the Hebrew words, even if it's a letter at a time, a word at a time, a passage at a time, whether it's the whole parashah or not, studying the words is conducting a personal relationship with him. Even if you don't have a dictionary, even if you don't have a Tanakh, even if you don't have a rabbi or a preacher or somebody that can help you. Nowadays there's the internet, it's all over the place, and everybody here can help somebody. The point is, studying his words is studying him, as far as I can tell from studying the words with a vengeance as much as I possibly can in order to find this treasure map. And when I finally get this thing written up, I'd be happy to make it available whenever that might be. But there's something about comprehending the essence, the essence of each letter, and then becoming it. That's the key to the map. You've got to become what every one of these letters represents. And reading and recognizing the letter shapes is simply the surface. Anything else? One
I
more.
was assuming that she had incorporated all that you're talking about.
Perhaps. We don't know. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Can you go back to one part, right above your drawing of the treasure box? When you drew that, it looks like a tabernacle to me.
Yes, the tabernacle lining up with the letter Het. And the letter Kuf means to rise up and to cover over like the cloud.
Okay.
So I picture the letter Kuf as the pillar of fire, pillar of smoke, and the letter Het is the tabernacle Mishkan fence. And I'm suggesting that within those two letters of Het and Kuf, like the tabernacle and the pieces, the tabanit, the pattern within the tabernacle is his treasure box. And so when the ecclesiastical authorities erased the Moedim and the Sabbath day, they stole away Yahweh's treasure, so 2,000 years of Christendom has missed whatever treasure was in that box.
Isn't that also Yahweh's ultimate goal for us to tabernacle with him? When he walked the garden with Adam and Eve, they tabernacled with him, and isn't that kind of our goal too? Is that kind of what the
Certainly, yes.
Alephet says for us to get back?
Yes, that's part of the theme that runs through the whole thing.
Okay.
And these videos will be made available by either links on his site or by somebody else on this other site that I have. Probably, if I can do it, here, I'll write it up here. There's a guy down in Texas by the name of Colin Howie. He has a couple other things. Colin Howie. Colinhowie. He has a couple videos up there where I'm wearing the same hat from when I was in Shavuot in Kansas City. That's what I'm wearing here to piggyback off that same teaching. So that those folks that were in Kansas City can watch this and realize, hey there, Kansas City folks, that this is a direct extension of that we were talking about. Anybody else?
If anyone's interested in this Klein's Etymological Dictionary, Hebrew language for English readers, online, get in touch with me. I found it, and I'll have to look for it again, but I found where it's at online, so that, because my eyes aren't great, so it's hard to read that, because I wear a pair of glasses plus a magnifying glass to see that.
Links, real quick, what is your YouTube site?
Who are you
again?
and how to get in contact with you?
What's your YouTube site, Link?
Who are you and how do we get in contact?
I'm Jack Foss, I live up north.
Say it again louder.
Links Williams.
Here.
Links.
L-I-N-S-X Williams. What's your YouTube site?
It's 21st
21ST
Century
CENTURY
Exit us.
EXITUS. That's YouTube. That's where these videos will be. So he does it, let's put them up. We got to quit because we're at the end of the tape.
You got 14 minutes.
Well, we're out of time though. That's okay. Shalom.